Hey y'all, it's Amanda with the Pretty House team of Charles Rutenberg Realty and obviously of Palm Harbor Coastal Living. So I'm just going to hop on for a few minutes this morning because I spent a large majority of my evening last night trying to help a friend understand the listing agreement that she had signed. So lots of people are noticing that many houses are overpriced right now, and so they're deciding to come to market now instead of waiting till spring. And they're actually trying to price their houses accordingly, which is super, super smart. However, if after you've interviewed a whole bunch of agents, you sit down and you sign your listing agreement without reading it, it's only 4 pages. But still, if you don't want to read all of it, I totally get that. You don't have to read all of it, but there is 4 points that you really need to make sure you've read in your listing agreement. So I'm going to go over them. I'm going to tell you where they are in the standard listing agreement. Now, if you get some wackadoo person who's like written some fancy listing agreement that's not a Florida Association of Realtors document, unfortunately I can't help you there. But I'm just going to go over the 4 points that are most important and I think you really need to clarify on, focus down on it, and have a written understanding with your realtor. That way there's not going to be any discrepancies along the way. And hopefully you won't ever have to deal with this, but if there ever comes a point where you're not happy with the way things are going, if you haven't understood what you've signed, you might be powerless, okay? So on the very first page of the listing agreement, under paragraph 4, it basically says what the broker has to do for you in order to get a sale. And this is, out of 4 pages, this is the only place where it says what your real estate broker is obligated to do for you. And all they have to do is make diligent and continued efforts to sell the property until a sales contract is pending. That's all it says in 4 pages. That's all you get. So if you want details about what they're really going to do, they may show you the most amazing listing presentation in the world. But if you don't have it in writing, they don't have to do it. I'm not saying that people aren't ethical. I'm not saying that people will say one thing to get a listing and then do another. Not saying that. But if you don't have it in writing, they don't have to do it. So there's a page at the very end, right here. It says additional terms. And when I go to do a listing, there are things that I say that I'll agree to. And if I've agreed to something, it should be in the listing agreement. So if after you've talked to these amazing realtors, you pick one and they have told you that they will call you every day at 11 a.m. and tell you how amazing you are and tell you how well priced your house is and tell you how great it looks and tell you how the staging is beautiful, make sure that they've written it down in the listing agreement. Because the only thing that they legally have to do is make a diligent and continued effort to sell the house. What does that even mean? Diligent and continued effort to sell the house. That's it in 4 pages. That's all you get. You get 1 sentence. There's a whole bunch of information about assumption of existing mortgages, which hardly anybody does anymore. But all you get in a listing agreement is 1 sentence that says diligent and continued efforts. So if you get really angry at your realtor and you want to get out of your agreement, who's to say that they're not making diligent and continued efforts? Well, if it's written down under additional terms and they're not doing these things, I'm not an attorney, but I think you'd have more of a leg to stand on than based upon the vague thing on page 1. Okay? So that's sort of the first thing you might want to note on your listing agreement. The next 2 items in the listing agreement that you're going to want to note are on page 3. Page 3 out of 4. So we're almost done. The first one is under the broker's fee. Okay, so this has nothing to do with the commission. It just has to do with when the broker is entitled to a commission. So if you get an offer on your house for full price, exactly what you said you would, and you don't take it, you can be held reliable to pay that commission because you agreed to sell for that price. And you can't just change your mind because the realtors worked really, really hard to get you the offer. So in this market where inventory is so tight and where you haven't taken a look at what you're going to buy or where you're going to go, just because you panic because you don't have a place to live and you may be homeless, which is a terrible thing, does not give you the right to turn down a full price offer. So if you get a full price offer, you better be prepared to go because you could be owing a realtor a commission even if you choose not to sell. Again, I'm not an attorney, but it says it pretty clearly. Also, if you decide that you don't like working with your realtor anymore and you both agree to move on, and then 2 weeks later you sell the house to somebody that your realtor introduced you to, you may owe them a commission. That's called the protected period. And the protected period can be for as many days as they would like, because there's a blank in the listing agreement. So you need to see that. It's on the top of page 3. If within blank days after termination. I think we normally do 60 days, because quite honestly, if I can't sell the house to somebody that I've shown it to in 2 months, then they're not going to buy that house. But some people put 180 days. Some people, there's a lot of different numbers out there. But you just need to be aware of that. If you guys have a falling out and you both decide to go your separate ways, that's all well and good. But if you have not read that part and then you sell it to somebody they found for it, you may owe them a commission. Now, here's the loophole for you. If you turn around the next day and you list your house with someone else, that protection period goes away completely. So you don't like them, you let them go, you find Sally sells houses online, you love her, you hire her. Everybody that was protected is immediately gone back out into the free market. So that's kind of your loophole. So the last point that I'm going to make about the listing agreement and the things you should be aware of is your conditional termination. So it does say in the listing agreement that you have the right to request a conditional termination, which means I don't want to do this with you anymore. Conditionally, though. So what are the conditions? You can be held responsible to reimburse them for marketing the property. They also have a line where they can put in a cancellation fee. And that's just a number they so choose. Plus applicable sales tax. I always really appreciated that. Applicable sales tax on a termination fee. The broker is the one that can void the conditional termination. And then they can also ask you to pay fees for their time of marketing the property. Let's say that you're out of state and you had to have a repair done and your realtor showed up for you to have that repair done. They can try to hold you responsible for the fees for their time. So when you sign that page 3, you're going to want to discuss the conditional termination. And if you want to do a cap on how much or, something like that, but just be clear on what you're getting yourself into. The fourth thing that is actually not in the listing agreement, but is a fee that I would say 98% of brokers charge is they either call it an MLS fee or a transaction fee or this is a bunch of bull fee. They don't call it that, but they should. So the MLS/transaction fee came about when the market plunged in 06, 7, and 8, and brokerages weren't closing properties, so they weren't making money off of the realtors, if that makes sense. So a brokerage, Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, any of the big brokerages, they take a percentage of a commission. So they only make money, except for the monthly fees, they only make more money when houses close. So if houses aren't closing, they have to make money somehow. So they would charge an additional fee because less properties were closing, and they would call it an MLS fee or a transaction fee or a cloud fee or make up whatever word you want. It's a fee. Well, the market's recovered and that fee has stayed. So anytime you sit down and all of a sudden you're signing off on your listing documents, you might want to ask about additional fees that would be charged to you. And don't believe the hype, because there's lots of very prominent real estate teams that are running very successful businesses without charging you fees above and beyond their commission. Right? It's a commission. That's what they should get, in my opinion. But anyway, so those are the 4 points that I've highlighted for you if you're planning on signing a listing agreement in Florida today, tomorrow, next week, next month. Don't think there's any changes coming. Those typically always stay. I've also done a little one sheet for you so that you can have this at hand when you meet with the realtor, because you will forget and then big words will start coming at you like unilaterally and transaction broker and dual agent, and that's not happening here. So if you want my one sheet on it, just so you can keep it in your file of questions to ask the realtor, I'm happy to shoot it to you in a private message. Just click the link. It's either up or below. Not sure where Facebook puts things these days. Click the link and I'll shoot it over to you. Thanks a bunch, guys. Have a great day. Bye.